it's men. And I want you to know that is the gayest thing that you can do is to go to a store, a sex shop, buy a dildo, come to a women's game to throw the dildo on the court. That is the gayest shit that I've ever heard. The men that are throwing it, it also shows that you are weak, like extremely weak. And it says a lot about how you feel about women. Y'all gay to us and we see it. So keep throwing them if you just want to keep telling us you're gay. Like, you good, Chad? You good, Richard? Are you good, Paul? Because it also is a certain demographic. Y'all cool?
Wait a minute. Let me make sure I'm understanding you correctly. According to Natasha Cloud, the men who were generously donating fabricated wieners to unknown players in the WNBA, those men, according to Natasha Cloud, are gay? And Natasha Cloud is referring to them as gay as an insult? I don't know about you guys, but that does not sound very inclusive to me. It also doesn't sound very appreciative. Over the last 48 hours, wealthy men have decided to make charitable donations to the WNBA. Thursday night, during a pretend basketball game between the LA Sparkles and the Atlanta Dreamers, a wealthy man tossed a pretend wiener onto the court. Almost immediately, Angel Reese, who is now known as Confidential Informant, she contacted her handler at the police department and reported this vicious crime. "Excuse me, officer, we have been infected with toxic masculinity. Someone is tossing pretend wiener on the court at our pretend basketball game." Why is Angel Reese contacting the diversity deputies and having these philanthropists arrested? Last I checked, WNBA players had no problem with men joining their league. Hell, some people think some WNBA players actually aspire to be men. 24 hours later, as the Golden State Vikings and Chicago Bravado were sedating hundreds of people while struggling to score double-digit points in a quarter, 3 gentlemen from Chicago, they donated 3 standard-size schlongs. According to Natasha Cloud, who was able to identify the perpetrators, "Yes, officer, their names were Chad Thundercock, Richard, better known as Dick or Big D, and the other white nerd was named Paul." Let me ask you something. If Caitlin Clark addressed the media after a game and Caitlin Clark lectured the black fan base in the WNBA, how would the mainstream media respond? If Sophie Cunningham did the same thing that Natasha Cloud did, but the races and the names were reversed? The hate in our league is coming from the same demographic. I see you, Reginald. I see you, Kwame. I see you, Jamal. Both Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham would be accused of mythical racism. But when Natasha Cloud does it, it's okay, because Natasha Cloud belongs to multiple marginalized groups. Plus, as you guys know, demonizing the white man is always encouraged at Woke United Methodist. Just to be clear, I have no problem with what Natasha Cloud said. Matter of fact, I thought it was kind of funny. The problem I have, the humor does not work both ways. You know how many times I have been accused of fake racism because I criticize Angel Reese? I never criticize her personally. I criticize her skill set, or in some cases, her complete lack of skill. Criticizing Angel Reese, no bueno. Criticizing Angel Reese gets you charged with violating the woke commandments. Meanwhile, clotheslining Sophie Cunningham is celebrated. Meanwhile, we get accused of being divisive. We're accused of using the WNBA, a league whose foundation is built on politics. This toxic turd of a league is proud to be Rainbow Warriors. For decades, the only way the WNBA could generate attention was by being political. But now, when so-called outsiders highlight the toxic culture in this league, we get accused of being bad faith actors and sowing division. You don't have to take my word for it. Listen to this statement from Cathy Engelbert. Watch for yourself.
People are trying to use the league to sow divisiveness. We're being the center of political football for people who have never watched the WNBA, never have written about the WNBA, or reported on the WNBA. There's always going to be haters out there, and we denounce it. But that's what happens when you have made it as a legitimate sports media and entertainment product.
I keep telling you guys, this dump of a league does not want your business. According to Cathy Engelbert, we are being used by people who have never watched pretend basketball. They've never reported on the beautiful illusion of basketball in our league. If we were forced to abide by Cathy Engelbert's standards, no one would be allowed to talk about the WNBA, because before Caitlin Clark entered the league, no one was watching pretend basketball. The only people attending WNBA games back then were either court-ordered to be there for community service hours, or their doctor prescribed WNBA tickets to cure their insomnia. I have never seen a league be this combative with its own fan base. Even when the NBA was at war with its fan base back in 2020, 2021, it wasn't this bad. Every single day, WNBA players and coaches, or in some cases team owners, they are lecturing fans, they're lecturing paying customers. Remember a couple of weeks ago when the two teenage girls traveled to Seattle to support Sophie Cunningham? They were wearing those XXXY t-shirts, and the co-owner of the Seattle Spankers had an emotional meltdown. How dare you support women in my arena? The WNBA doesn't stand for women, it stands for wanker. The question is why? Why does the WNBA keep lashing out at its own fan base? From the commissioner, team owners, last night Natasha Cloud is mad with the white man for their generous donations of battery-powered wiener. Even though her meltdown was comedic, it's the wrong way to handle this. You know what you do when electric Johnsons are being tossed onto the court? You no-sell it. You ignore it. You act like it doesn't bother you because it shouldn't bother you. Think about it. Every year during NFL season, some drunk doofus runs onto the field. Happens in Major League Baseball, happens in the NBA, and it happens more than you think, but we hardly ever hear about it. Why? Because the networks refuse to broadcast it, and the leagues refuse to address it publicly. They handle it behind the scenes, the dumbass goes to jail, which is exactly what should happen to the dorks throwing wiener on the court at the WNBA games. All kidding aside, if a WNBA player got hit in the face with a plastic wiener, it could seriously hurt them. But one of the reasons you ignore it is so it doesn't happen again. You want to eliminate the incentive of free publicity. But the WNBA, they just can't help themselves. They are overreacting to charitable donations of wiener. They're allegedly forcing young women to change shirts if they want to keep men out of women's sports. Every day, this league is overreacting based on emotion. Why? I think the WNBA realizes they're stuck. This league is outraged over donated dildos, but they have no problem with men being allowed in their league. But they don't want Enes Kanter and Royce White in their precious league. Of course, they can't say that publicly because then they would be accused of hypocrisy. Everyone involved in this league is emotional. Uncle KC, that's okay. Sports are supposed to be emotional. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I get emotional about my Saints. I'm emotionally invested in the NBA, but the emotion in the WNBA is different. It's toxic because it's based on ideology, and in some cases, it's based on race. 3 months ago, Jason Whitlock was pretty much celebrated by Caitlin Clark fans. The first time he criticizes Caitlin Clark, they turn on him. Fans of Angel Reese, they are damn sure not any better. The other day, I had hundreds of lonely men on Twitter pissed off at me because I committed the sin of saying that Angel Reese is a role player and not a star player. I said she is responsible for creating this perception that she is a star player. You're a race baiter. Why are you disrespecting my queen and future wife? Now, Cathy Engelbert is emotionally reacting instead of leading. She's basically insinuating that certain demographics or a certain demographic is responsible for dividing the WNBA. When the reality is, your players are responsible for dividing your league. Your coaches are responsible. Hell, the Toronto Pimples, they announced earlier this week that their doofus mascot is non-binary. Hey, it's me, the Pimple. I prefer they, them pronouns. Pimples are for everyone. Most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, when you see constant overreactions, emotional reactions, it means you're bothered. I could care less when people accuse me of mythical racism because I know it ain't true and my audience knows it's not true. If someone came into my studio right now and threw a dildo on my couch over there, I would laugh about it. But in the WNBA, they overreact and act like it's a felony. The problem for Cathy Engelbert, and this is one of the reasons that she is going to lose her job as WNBA commissioner, she cannot chastise the real divisiveness in the WNBA. She can't condemn the players and coaches who are dividing the league because Cat knows she will be accused of mythical racism, or even worse, homophobia. So instead of addressing the real problem, Cathy Engelbert continues to address the symptom, which is the fan base. And it's going to cost Cathy Engelbert her job because this league desperately needs someone who is willing to lead. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys tomorrow.